Okay. Let's talk about appealing to the Mason student and what that actually means. Now, of course, as you will remember, right, in week one, we talked about that rhetorical situation, which is audience, purpose, and genre. So, in this first assignment, as we discussed on Monday, your audience, or Tuesday, sorry, your audience is already given for you. This is a helpful way so that you don't have to kind of jump into a rhetorical situation and figure it all out by yourself. So the audience for this narrative argument is the Mason student. So how do we appeal to the Mason student? Now, luckily, every single one of you are part of that in group. You're an insider of the group, which means that you know a lot of information about the Mason student already. But we do still have to be aware that each one of us individually is not representative of the Mason student, of course. So, what I want you to go through and do is just a bit of a brainstorming thought process jotted on the board or a piece of paper wherever you're at kind of activity, right? What do you know about the Mason student? So let's take a look first off as to what are the values. What do Mason students typically value? Now, I'm aware that we're going to make some generalizations and we're going to make some assumptions, but we also will give time to push back against them. So come along with me, keep doing it. So, what are the values of the Mason student? What are the biases of the Mason student? Right? What do we kind of take for granted that everybody has? Do we have those biases? Do we have those um, ideas or moments where we think we know kind of everything because of one or two little experiences, right? Go ahead and put those down. Um, Also, what are the cultural frameworks of the Mason student? Now, this in particular for Mason is where we get really, really tricky because Mason is so wonderfully diverse that a lot of our cultural frameworks may or may not run into some of those biases, right? In the example, the student example that you read, they're talking about somebody always taking pictures through their phones. Now, this has a cultural frame, a very specific technological cultural frame that we're working off of. But we should also recognize that maybe not all students have that relationship with their phone. Maybe not all students have a phone like that. Maybe not all students actually use their phone like that. And that ending sentence where it's like, after you're done Instagramming your food, now savor every bite, right? A great little nod to that culture and to that cultural frame. But again, maybe some people don't do the Instagram thing, and certainly don't do it with food. So take a moment and see if you can jot down maybe two to three things of what does the Mason student value? What are some of the biases that Mason students have? And what are some of the cultural frames that Mason students come from? So go ahead and pause, do that little bit of work. Okay, now as promised, take time to push against that, right? We have a range of experiences, a range of identities, a range of backgrounds that Mason students are, right? So we need to go through and not only have those value biases and cultural frames, but also take time to push. Um, what are the, try to switch around here. What are kind of the multiple perspectives, experiences, and then maybe what we're kind of leading into here are those counter arguments. Right? And we'll talk about more of those in a minute here, but take a look at what are some of the kind of multiplicities that we end up working through in very wonderful, great ways that we have those things. Um, and then go ahead and play around with, yeah, but some people might say, or some people might think, or some people would argue that, whatever. This is a great way to build and understand an audience and kind of start to analyze that audience a little bit. Based on this analysis of your audience, now we should be able to reflect on what is maybe the best way to actually discuss things with that audience, to appeal to that audience. Notice in the prior, or in the student example, right? The amount of contractions used, the very personal tone, the word use of the word you, right? Now, wait, or note, you might think this, or whatever. That's in there because it's largely conversational. Once you know your audience, now you can determine what style of writing, and we call those kind of grammatical choices, those wording choices, style. So, what style of writing will appeal to your audience? What style of writing can you use for your audience? So, go and work and figure out your audience, and we'll talk more later.